welcome once again to No Apology with Emilee and Chris. I'm Emilee Danielson, and I'm really, really glad that you're spending a little time with us today. My husband, Chris. Say hello, Chris.
Hello. Hi.
We have a really good show planned for today, don't we?
We do, and we're not going to wait to get into it with any kind of chatter about the Bible or about culture or about anything.
Who needs that
Bible
Bible
we're going to get into the Bible
anyway.
apologetics and stuff like that, but there's somebody who's a special guest that we're just going to go straight to our special guest.
Yes.
Here he is. His name is Bryan Dawson, and we're going to tell you who he is in just a second. But Bryan, welcome to No Apology with Emilee and Chris. Emilee's brand new show, which I get to be a small part of, and now you get to be a small part of.
I'm honored, and apparently I'm more important than the Bible. The way that you kind of teed that up, so I'm feeling a little bit. There's a lot of hype coming into this interview with the start off like that. So I'll see what I can.
Well, I love the on-air thing behind you. You're in your own podcast studio. Bryan is the CEO. Yeah, Bryan is the CEO of a brand new, well, not brand new. It's about 2 years old. Conservative media outlet called 1819 News, and 1819 News is an Alabama-based news organization, but 1819 is the year Alabama was founded. Now, Bryan, you're our former affiliate rep. The last time the Chris and Emilee show was syndicated nationally, you were our affiliate rep. And then together from that moment to now, which has been about 7 years, you've grown into a handful of different opportunities. And I kind of been I was kind of in the sidecar with you for a chunk of it. And then you've just grown now to this CEO, and we are so proud of you. But I'm going to hit you with a resume. Emilee, you know what that resume is. Should I tell the people?
I think you should not.
Why?
Because I think
Probably
you should let Bryan do the big reveal.
You want to do the big reveal, Bryan?
The felony reveal.
Yeah, the felony reveal.
There we
the
go.
Felony reveal. There it is. It's like gender reveal, but with crimes.
Bryan was facing 300 and some years of prison time and actually got sentenced to 16 years. And then God intervened in a way that's hard to explain. And Bryan, we just want you not only to share your story, but after we talk about your story some, I want to spin this into why we want to do a Bible apologetics type show that also has culture ramifications, also has a lot of fun. It's almost like a variety show. We're going to talk about Christian movies, we're going to talk about Christian music, but it's always going to come from an authentic biblical perspective. How important is that authentic biblical perspective to someone like you who watched Jesus basically tear up your prison sentence and give you a brand new lease on life? It's very biblical what happened to you in reality in the flesh, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and you know how I feel about Christian media as one of my best good friends over the last 7 years. And I think what the word that you said is what's lacking in much of it is that word authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that authentic piece is, and I think you come out and say, hey, I have 6 felonies, God saved me in prison. Well, all of a sudden you're jumping into a level of authenticity that most don't have, but also I don't know, really where I'm going with that other than, the word authentic, I think matters. And so you said, how much does Bible culture, apologetics, all of those things, I think if you have authenticity in all of it and in the culture that we're living in, and in a world where people are getting canceled, I had a podcast earlier today with a guy that was a professor at the University of Alabama, and they got rid of their graduate requirement testing exam because it was causing some people to not look as good that maybe had different color skin than white people. And so they got rid of those, and he's like, hey, I don't know if that's a good idea. And so they fired him. And so that's the world that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing all the stuff with all the, gender dysphoria and all the other stuff. And so if Christians don't step up to the plate and start being authentic, I think we're in serious trouble. And one of the things I've always appreciated about you, both of you guys, is that you guys do that. You've stepped your toe into saying some tough things that have gotten you into a little bit of trouble on the radio before, and that may be my favorite thing about you guys. Yes,
no, not us.
So,
we've lived controversy free for the last 20 years, Bryan.
I was going to say maybe the last 20 minutes. But,
yeah, maybe the last 20 minutes. Yeah.
So
for sure.
But yeah, But as far as my story goes, happy to share it. I'll try and keep it down. I mean, I can do a 3-hour version or a 20-minute version.
We're good with the 3-hour version.
My favorite version is the hour and 15-minute version, which you've taken down to 20 minutes. But needless to say, you can't tell on camera, but Bryan, you're kind of a big dude. And the one that caught my attention when we first met was I learned that Dog the Bounty Hunter turned down the opportunity to go to Colorado Springs and try to bring in Bryan Dawson. He said he didn't want to mess with you. And you beat a man to an inch of his life. I mean, you had all this backstory. Tell us when it started. In the 20-minute version, it's hard to go all the way back to a child, but man, you were living through it and God changed your life. And that's what's so amazing to me. Where do you want to start on this journey, Bryan?
Yeah, I'll start in administrative segregation, solitary confinement, and I'll clarify too. And so, Dog the Bounty Hunter was already in Colorado Springs, and so I was where he was, and supposedly I was armed and dangerous, and my threat level was such that he, who is also a felon who can't carry firearms, he has a paintball gun that uses pepper spray bubbles that come out of the paintball gun. So anyway, I always want to clarify why he couldn't come after me. It makes me sound way too cool when Dog the Bounty Hunter didn't want to come after you, but it's true.
It is true.
It is true. So yeah, when I was 23 years old, I was sitting in the El Paso County Criminal Justice Center, which is the county jail in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was facing 384 years in prison for attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. And so here I am. How does white suburban Bryan go from white suburban to 6-time felon facing 384 years in prison where Dog the Bounty Hunter doesn't want to go after you? And so, I'll back up to childhood and kind of do the Forrest Gump where we come from childhood to administrative segregation and then forward.
Yeah, because in the end, we end with you being CEO of an up and coming powerful media opportunity. Let's
just call it an empire, okay?
Let's hear about the backstory of the new Glenn Beck, Bryan Dawson.
Yes, there you go. There
all right, hit it.
The not Mormon Glenn Beck. All right. So I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You guys, it's an interesting another tie-in that we have. Is you guys and the Robertsons and my family and the Robertsons. My dad grew up in West Monroe, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. The only people more poor than the Dawsons in West Monroe, Louisiana was the Robertsons, right? My dad grew up with Phil Robertson. He is a West Monroe, Louisiana swamp redneck. That's my dad. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And my mom was the daughter of a state senator. And they had no business being together. My dad got my mom pregnant, so they had me. And I always say that's my pedigree, is the Louisiana redneck mixed with the state senator. And you put those two things together and you get this. And so that was
this. I like that.
That was how I came into the world. And my parents got divorced when I was 2. Courts put me with my mom, which they tend to do, just knee-jerk reaction. And it was a very poor choice to put me with my mom this go round. And every circumstance and every situation is different. But if they would have been doing their job, I don't think they would have done that. And my mom was had a lot of issues, and she did the best she could. But at the end of the day, it was not really a healthy environment for my brother and I to be in. And so from basically 0 to 10, I was living with my mom. She was an alcoholic. I had multiple stepdads. I used to watch her get, abused by her husbands. It just wasn't good. And, that affected me. And I always say kind of 0 to 10 are what they call formative years in childhood. And a lot of the things that children need to form well, I was lacking. And so I had a lot of issues, not to get all Freudian, but, I had issues from that time period. And so when I was 10, I ended up moving in with my dad. There was a lot more structure there. My dad was very much the get up at 4:30, go to work, put a roof over your head, put food on the table. We ate dinner as a family, had structure. It was good, but he, even to this day, is not a believer. Mm-hmm. And so, there was still some things that were missing, but it was good. And I'm very grateful for that time that I had with my dad. Mm-hmm. That showed me kind of what normal life looked like and everything. But I still had those issues from 0 to 10 with my mom. I was never comfortable in my own skin. But when I began to drink, when I was 14 years old, I started to drink alcohol. And that feeling went away of not being comfortable in my own skin. And so I began to party all the time. And I would drink to the point of blacking out. When I was 16, I got my driver's license and made a fake ID. I was very creative type. And so made a fake ID. I was the life of the party, all those type of things. And so drinking turned into drugs. Drugs started with marijuana, then gotten into experimenting with other things. And I ended up getting in a big fight with my dad at the beginning of my senior year. And he made me quit football and go to rehab, or quit football and go live with your mom in Colorado. And I was living in Wichita, Kansas at the time. And worth noting, I think, in this is it kind of, and it'll circle back around. The issues that I had, the reason I drank is because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And not being comfortable in my own skin always made me awkward with the opposite sex. And so, there was this, I think it's exemplified best with this girl in 8th grade. I was madly in love with her. I asked her to 8th grade graduation dance. We went. Afterwards, I professed my undying love to her and told her I wanted her to be my girlfriend. I said she gave me the Heisman and put me in the friend zone. And that was pretty much it. My relationship.
By the way, that didn't look like
forward.
A stiff arm. It looked like you were showing us your earbud case, just so you know, on camera. Yeah, there you go. Right. But she was giving you the Heisman. There you go. Heisman. There you go. There it is. There it is. All right, and, 8th grade. Keep going.
Yeah. So, and then that ended up basically being where I stayed with all girls, and that didn't do wonders for my self-esteem either. And so, whatever. You'll see why that comes up here in a little bit. But anyway. Yeah, so that was me, and so I moved to Colorado the beginning of my senior year. My brother was driving a drug dealer around. It's like driving Miss Daisy, but it's driving the drug dealer. And he would drive him around, and they would do deliveries, and I would sit in the back seat, and I would watch this guy who was, all the men wanted to be him, all the girls wanted to be with him, right? He had tremendous respect. Yep. The ladies liked him. He had stacks of money. I'm like, good grief, is there anything this man doesn't have? And so I wanted to be like him. And so I began.
And you're how old now? You're senior in high school, 17?
I was 17. Yep.
Okay.
I was 17, about to be 18 when that happened. And so I wanted to be him. And so I began working for him, and I started selling weed. Next, I started doing cocaine. Realized real quick you can't do cocaine and selling weed. So I started selling cocaine. Turns out what makes me really good at, being a CEO that acquires capital for a media company made me really good at what I was doing then, selling drugs. And, within a few years, I was pushing lots and lots of drugs for cartels in Colorado Springs. And, and so I got arrested multiple times in that stage of my life. And then towards the end, one of the times I got arrested was I was running a motorcycle theft ring. We'd stolen a bunch of crotch rocket style motorcycles that we had in storage units that we were trading to Mexican nationals that were coming across the border, and they'd fill up covered trailers with these motorcycles we were stealing. They would take them across the border where they weren't stolen anymore, and they would do whatever with them, and they would trade me drugs for it. And so that thing got busted up, and people got arrested, and they went around pointing out all the storage units. And so that came to a screeching halt, and I got arrested. But I went to county jail, and they give you a thing called a discovery that tells you all the evidence that the state has against you. So it lists all the people that told on you. And I'm like, I'm thinking I'm getting punked. I'm like, they're really giving me this list? And well, it turns out they have to. And so I end up bonding out and going and finding these people that told on me and beating them up. And one of them I beat nearly within an inch of his life. And that is where the attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion case came from. So, but I think it's worth kind of telling, so what happened, I found out this guy told on me, went, knocked on his door. He opened the door, walked into his house. And I said, why'd you tell me? I didn't tell on you. I didn't tell on you. And so I actually had a taser and began to tase him, started to beat him up. And he continued to say, he didn't tell on me. A guy I was with actually hit him in the head with a blackjack, and blood went everywhere. We thought he was dead. And that was it. And left there, told his brother who was there that he needed to pay me the money that he was owed. Otherwise, I was going to be back and do the same thing to him. And we stole a bunch of stuff out of the house when we left. And there's where you get your attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion charges. And so they put me in county jail. I'm thinking I'm going to do the rest of my life in prison. So I've got to be this tough guy. I've got to be this, bad dude. And so I start clicking up with some of the gangs and stuff in there. I didn't join any gangs, but I was kind of a hang around. And I started to get into fights, and they'd say, hey, you need to go take care of this, and you need to go take care of that. And I would go beat this person up, go beat that person up. Ooh. Well, finally, I ended up racking up 2 more assault cases while I was in county jail, and they just had enough with me. And so they put me into administrative segregation. And so that is getting to the Forrest Gump on a bench part of the solitary confinement. But before God saved me, when I was in solitary confinement, which is you're in a 8.5 foot by 12 foot cinder block cell by yourself for 23 hours a day. You get an hour out to go make a phone call, take a shower, and then you're back in your cell. And before God saved me, I say that God thumped me when I was in ADSEG. And so in that thumping, he showed me that this was my fault. And, to us normal,
go
responsible,
deep on that
people,
for a second. How did he show you that it was your fault? Because, I understand your condition, but God had to do something. Define the thump for the audience today?
So what I began to connect in my head was this was my fault. And to us healthy, normal, responsible people, we understand that we're responsible for our choices, our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't understand that. I believed it was my mom's fault I was in there. It was my dad's fault I was in there. It was the cop's fault. It was the system's fault. It was the district attorney's fault. It was the judge's fault. It was the system's fault. I was a victim. Why couldn't anyone see it, right? And I really believed that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thump was your bad choices created these bad circumstances. You can make good choices that will create good circumstances. And when that click happened in my head, everything began to change. And again, how much can things change when you're in a cell by yourself? Well, it was enough for my grandma to take notice. And my family had completely cut me off up to this point without except like a once a month phone call. And my grandma really sensed that something had changed in my life. And so we began to talk, and she kind of rallied my family around, and I really began to get my family back in my corner, and they started to notice the changes. And then as I was in ADSEG, the district attorney came back to me. So if you remember, I was facing 384 years if I went to trial. Mm-hmm. They came back and offered me 32 years with a crime of violence, sentence enhancer to plea. So I could either go to trial and get 384, and I was going to get 384 because I was extra guilty.
Yeah. You were guilty.
And there's, very. And so, the plea bargain, I could plea out and they would give me 32 years. And so by the grace of God, I was able to get into a mediation hearing, and I negotiated. And so I was able to negotiate that 32 year, with a crime of violence down to a 16-year nonviolent crime. And that is what I ended up getting sentenced to, was a 16-year, sentence to the Colorado Department of Corrections. And, that was, and I didn't even get to the point where I was on the run. So I'm trying to do the succinct version, the short
I know,
version.
you got it. We got to do the succinct version. There's a lot more to the story. But when you were on the run before you even got arrested, because I think it's kind of cool. Because, look, your story, Bryan, is a story that every Christian goes through spiritually. You went through it physically, where we are guilty. Yeah. We need salvation. We need a savior. We can't save ourselves. It doesn't matter how we got ourselves into this situation, but here we are. But the story, I'm gonna let you tell the story, but I'm just gonna let everybody know it ends with Bryan hanging out a window by his fingertips. Tell that story, bro.
So we'll back up to before I got arrested. So I got arrested for beating the guy nearly to death. I go to county jail. They charge me with attempted murder, aggravated robbery, and extortion. I bond out again, and the plan was to go on the run. And so me and my friend were going to go to California, and we were going to, go down into Mexico. That was the plan. Why not Canada? For whatever reason, Mexico is more attractive to criminals. Well, I don't know what the deal is there.
Well, that was where your motorcycles were.
That's right. That is correct. I had wheels, and I had to go get them. So. But that ended up not working out. And while I was still hanging around Colorado Springs, I missed my court date. And so now all the fugitive task force, crime reduction unit, bounty hunters were all after me, and thus the dog, the bounty hunter scenario.
Right.
And so they surround a couple places that I was at, and I got away. I'd get away. And so, I ended up hiding, and they would get into the house and they wouldn't find me. I mean, just crazy. That happened on 2 separate occasions. And so I ended up becoming one of the most wanted criminals in Colorado Springs, if not the most wanted criminal in Colorado Springs. And they finally get me at this apartment complex. I'm in a 3rd-story apartment. I call it my safe house, but that's where I was before we were going to go to California down in Mexico. I'm on the 3rd story, and this is June 19th, 2007. I wake up at like 3 in the afternoon. I'm not a healthy, responsible individual. I woke up at 3 in the afternoon. And I smoked some weed, and I was watching the Chappelle Show cooking bratwurst. I know it's weird, the details, but that's what I was doing.
Yeah, those details stick with you.
They do. Yeah. When in any trauma situation, it just pops in your memory every time.
And I love the picture painting. I love that.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Bratwurst, Chappelle, weed, Bryan, 3 in the afternoon.
That's right. There it is. And so I go and look out the window and I see the front end of a cop car. And so I'm like, okay, the gig is up. They're here. And I started hearing boom, 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 Colorado Springs police, open up. And they kick in the door, but it wasn't my door. So they were like 4 or 5 apartments down the hallway kicking in doors because they didn't know which one I was in. And so I had a
Wow.
recliner in there, and the recliner was wider than the window. And the guy that I was supposed to go to California and Mexico with, a guy named Spider, he showed me how to tie a nylon rope to the bottom of this recliner, and every 18 inches there was a double knot so I could climb down. And so if this situation happens, see, I was prepared. I was like a 6-time felon Boy Scout, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have a Swiss Army knife. I had a meth pipe. That was about it.
Yeah.
But so I kicked the screen out of the window. I wrapped the rope around my hand and jumped from the 3rd story, and then I'm hanging from the 3rd story. And what I didn't know is there was a surveillance van in that parking lot behind the apartment building, and 50 or 60 cops come swarming from around each side of the building with guns drawn. And that was it. And they said, get on the ground, except they were saying some choice words that I wouldn't say on this here Christian media podcast
Thank you.
to me about getting getting on the ground. And so I ended up, grabbing the rope, unwrapping my hand, and dropping 3 stories and hit the ground. And they put their knee in my back and put the cuffs on me, and that was it. That was June 19th, 2007.
Well,
Wow.
let's skip ahead a little bit. You are convicted. You now go to prison. You're facing 16 years, but you did not serve even close to that. And there's some miracles that happen, including going back to your 8th grade girlfriend. So let's pick it up from there.
Yeah. So I end up going to Walsenburg, Colorado is the first prison I go to. And the first person I meet there, a guy comes up to me. He's a big guy, even bigger than me. And he's got a Semper Fi tattoo on his arm. And he says, hi, my name's Charles Frederick, and I'm a Christian. This is a faith pod. I said, what is a faith pod? And he says, well, we do discipleship and worship in the morning and stuff. And I'm like, I don't even know what these words mean. And I said, look, man, we can be friends. You obviously look like you know your way around the joint, but, you can leave the Jesus stuff at the door. And so he just shakes his head and he says, okay. And he just becomes my friend. And over, the course of the next year, he begins just planting gospel seeds in the conversations as opportunity allowed. He didn't browbeat me, and he provided for me. You get in there and you've got your, a couple pairs of underwear, your green suit, a cup and a spoon. That's it. And so he gave me soups, he gave me, sweats, he gave me coffee, things like that. And then it just became my friend. And again, dropped gospel seeds as time would allow. He ended up getting shipped to another prison. I bounced around and ended up getting going to a couple other prisons. And then we both ended up at Sterling Correctional Facility together. And I walk out on the yard and boom, there's Charles, picked up right where we left off with him planting gospel seeds. He gets me into some faith-based programs, one of which was that is ultimately where I got saved was the Truth Project. With Dr. Del Tackett, which is just absolutely incredible. If you haven't been through,
we are 9 weeks, we are 9 episodes through in my church here in Iowa with a small group, just kind of going through it. And there's somebody in the Truth Project that you actually partied with that pretty well.
Yeah, no, I used to do drugs with Flash, and so it's a whole deal. If you've seen the Truth Project and you've been through it, Flash is a guy that they interview, and what's interesting is they interview people all over the world in the Truth Project. And then all of a sudden, boom, they come to this guy that used to buy drugs from me. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah. So that actually kind of played a part in it. So I'm in the Truth Project. I see Flash in there. And one of the guys, he tells his story at the end. I'm like, well, I'm going to stick around for that. Well, I'm in there and I'm arguing with these guys, though, because, there's some mega truth claims that are coming from Dr. Del Tackett and these guys at my table. And I'm like, look, man, you guys are stupid if you believe this, right? And, I said that, and I almost got in a fight with these guys, and just because they were Christians didn't mean they weren't convicts. You know what I mean? And I'm going to tell them they're stupid if they believe this. And the deal was, I believed in God, but I didn't know how to. I didn't understand Jesus. I could believe that this Jewish guy got nailed to a piece of wood 2,000 years ago, right? I could believe that and created a cult following, but I couldn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God, that he was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect life and didn't do anything wrong, that he died and his death did something for me, and he rose from the dead. Those are my issues with the Christian faith, and turns out they're pretty paramount in it.
Well, at least you picked the big ones.
So,
almost like you were calling those other convicts Bible idiots, right?
But 16 years. So I'm going back to my cell after that night, and we're in the education building. We're walking over back to the units where we live. And Charles just says, look, Bryan, why don't you give him a chance? And for whatever reason, again, I understand God's sovereignty, so I know the reason. That was it. I'd been told that a million times. Why don't you give him a chance? Why don't you give him a chance? And I went back to my cell and prayed that night. Again, I believed in God. I prayed. I was agnostic. I just didn't understand the Jesus piece.
Yeah.
So I prayed to God and said, look, God, if I need to believe that Jesus was your son, that he was born of a virgin, that, that I went through all those things. I said, you're going to have to show me because I'm having serious issues with it. And so I ended up going to sleep that night and having this horrible nightmare. I've fallen off a cliff in my sleep, and I wake up in cold sweats like I'm falling, and I look at my clock, and in my cell, the clock says 3:16. It was the only thing I could see in my cell was the clock. And the only Bible verse I've ever known my entire life is John 3:16, which was the answer to my question. And so I ended up, that was Sunday morning at 3:16 in the morning. I ended up getting up, going to Christian services, is what they call church there. You got to be politically correct. So we went to Christian services. Chaplain Davis preached. I don't remember a word that he preached, but at the end he did an invitation. And the guy I was with, I looked over. I said, Ramon, what is an invitation? And he didn't say, well, that's where you invite Jesus into your heart, brother. He said, look, man, if you've got something hindering your relationship with God, you can go down there and pray with that man about it. And he just stepped out of the way because he knew God was moving. And so I go down to the front. Chaplain Davis grabs my hand, puts his other hand on my shoulder, and says, look, Mr. Dawson, how can I pray for you? I said, look, chap, I'm not here to make any decisions. I would just ask you to pray that God would soften my heart so the truth can come in, because I can tell he's working on me and I'm fighting with everything I have. And so he prays for me, and we finish praying, and I look up in his face, and he's just got tears pouring down his face. And, here he is, this, he's very much a man's man, prison chaplain, kind of guy, and he's in front of 130 inmates just weeping. And I knew that God had moved and done something. I count that the day that I got saved. And so I leave there. Charles gives me a Bible, and he says, start reading the story of Joseph and don't put it down. And so I just start devouring the word and just feasting on the word day in and day out, reading. So I'm, making my way all the way through the Bible. And that goes on for about 9 months. And in that 9 months, I'm involved in every faith-based program in the prison. And, I'm in choir. I mean, everything. And I can't sing worth a lick. I just love the fellowship. Can't get enough, right? Just getting after it. Feeling. Yeah. And so then about 9 months in, all my friends have pen pals. And I'm like, man, God, I wish I had a pen pal. And so I call my mom. She's running a Facebook page for me. And she reaches out to a bunch of different girls from my past. Nothing. I can't take any more rejection. And I said, look, God, if you want me to have a pen pal, you're going to do it. And so I just let it be. And I go about my business for 2 or 3 weeks. And I call my mom just to check in. And she said, hey, Brian, do you know this girl named Christina Ewan? And I said, yes, ma'am. Christina Ewan, that was a girl I was head over heels in love with all throughout middle school and high school that I would have sawed off my left arm to be with. If you put out all my yearbooks from kindergarten to senior year and you said you could pick one girl, to be with, who would it be? It would have went directly to Christina, immediately. Why? And she said, well, she wants to write you. And I'm like, she knows I'm in prison? Yeah, no, she knows you're in prison. Well, that's interesting. Did you get her address? Yeah. So I ended up writing the first letter, and I basically just wrote and said, look, I didn't get drunk and run somebody's dog over. I belong here. And she wrote me back, and she had just gotten saved about 6 months before that and had gone through a divorce. She had got married, had a son, and gotten divorced. And, so we were both very new in our faith and both very, that new stage of, newly being saved where you just can't stop talking about it, can't stop reading. And actually, hopefully that never goes away. But we were, very much into that. And we began to just write each other about what God was, doing with us, what the pastors was preaching on. And then we started reading books together. She would send a book and we'd read books together and really just fell in love through written letter. And I had to write her a letter and say, look, I can't help but feel like there's a spark here that wasn't there when we were in middle school and high school. And I snail mailed it out to her. And I'm waiting for the response, which is, in this text message email world we live in, that snail mail waiting on the girl that's rejected you your whole life to reject you again. I'm acutely aware that my stock cannot get any lower at this point, right?
Yeah, I bet after a week it was just torture every hour.
Yeah, it was. And so I get the letter and I open it up and I'm just kind of do the thing where you close your eyes and open with one and look at it. And she says, Brian, I feel the exact same way. I know that God wants me to be with you, whether you get out in 10 days or 10 years, I'm going to be here waiting. And I was just floored.
Wow.
And so I ended up putting in for a halfway house. So the way it works in Colorado, I had a 16-year prison sentence. At 8 years, you're eligible for parole. They do your pre-sentence confinement time. So the time I did in county jail comes off of that. and then you get earned time on top of that. And then 19 months before that, you're eligible for a halfway house. So at 5 years and 2 months, I was eligible to go to a halfway house, put in for Peer 1, which is the most intense behavior modification program of its kind in the country. Went there. That's how I got out early. Like if I was just going to try and get out, they wouldn't let me out. But they're like, "You want to go there? Go for it!" Right? And so they sent me there, and there's so much I could do 2 hours just on Peer 1 alone. But
Right.
I ended up going through the program, graduating with honors, getting married in the program. As soon as I was able to go out on a visit, Christina came and saw me. I proposed her on the front porch steps of a drug rehab because I'm the most romantic man in the world.
Timing is everything, right?
It really is. And we got married the next day in my grandma's living room.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
And then you guys decided to not have kids, right?
Yeah. We're really anti-kid. So, no, we were blessed. I was blessed when we got married. She already had a son, and he is a wonderful young man. Chris has had the privilege of meeting him. He knows.
Yeah.
And he's he's amazing.
He's probably going to be an athletic superstar. The kid's amazing.
Yeah. And not only athletic, but also smart, respectful. I say he brings honor to our home. So when you look at the scriptures and it talks about his son.
Even when he was like 11, how old is he now?
He's 13.
13. Even when he was like 9, 10, and even going into 11, we would be talking and you'd be like, you were just blown away by the level of depth of questions he would ask when you guys would be driving around to baseball games or football games. And, again. And you guys decided not to have any other kids other than Brennan, right?
just 6 more so far.
Just 6 more so far. That's right.
36? Is that what you said? So, like It's a Wonderful Life. Do you ever feel like that lead character in It's a Wonderful Life when everything's just going bad? It's like, why do we have all these kids?
Every Thanksgiving we have turkey and we hear about Bryan. New child coming,
yes,
and
that's true. That's true.
You when we first met and started hanging out, is Grace your third?
Grace is our first that we had together.
First, okay, and then Reagan.
Yep.
And then who was the baby when we first met? The third one.
I think Abigail.
Abigail, that's right. And then Charles was born.
So it's
right?
interesting. Yeah, and then Charles is named after Charles, right? The one that led me to the Lord in prison, planting the gospel seeds in my life.
Yep.
And then Emily, and then Rebecca. But what's interesting, and Charles is the one that pointed this out when he came out here to visit. He noticed we were doing it. We didn't even do it intentionally. So you have Brennan, but then the girls. It started with Gracie, so Grace, Reagan, Abigail, Charles, Emily. It spells grace if you go down.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so when we were done with grace, everyone's like, wow, you spell grace. Are you guys done? I said, no, I think we're going to spell propitiation next.
Well, Bryan Dawson's our special guest. He's the CEO of 1819 News, which is an Alabama-based conservative media platform. And we have been praying for that and cheering that on, even been a part of it for a while in certain ways. And so we're always excited about your success. Bryan, you have now 7 children, and I would love for you to explain your position, because hearing it from me saying, hey, I got a friend who feels this way and is living this way, versus you saying it, is that you guys really want God to close the womb, not you, and you believe that children are such a blessing from God that you won't stop until God stops you, I guess. Isn't it? I know can you tell me the actual way you phrase that? Yeah,
no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and it was even a touch more eloquent than even I could put. But I think it's ultimately, Psalm 127, Psalm 128, children are a heritage, they're a gift from the Lord, they're heritage. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full. It says there are the arrows in the hands of a mighty warrior. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full. And so we take that very literally. If you're at war, and we are in this culture that we're in a culture of death that hates children. I believe that we're at war, and so I want more arrows, not less, in my quiver. And we have friends who can't have children. We have friends who their womb is not open. And if God closes the womb, or if Christina gets into some type of a pregnancy that's kind of like, but up to this point, it's been smooth sailing. Every baby's been happy and healthy. Praise the Lord. Every delivery's been very, very easy. Praise the Lord. So we've had no scares or anything like that. So, we really just believe that they're a blessing. And we homeschool, and as you guys did, and we just think that that's a huge blessing
Yeah.
to be able to watch them and train them and see them just grow in their love of the Lord, and so that's
And it's a great witness to other people around you as well. One of my favorite, it's just a moment in time. Every once in a while, people will just have this moment in time that they'll just never forget. And nothing in particular really happens. It's just a moment, But one of those moments for me was you had come to the church that Chris was pastoring when we were in Alabama, and you were sharing your testimony and so on. And I look over at Christina, and she's sitting there, and I don't know how many kids you had at the time or with you on that day.
They had four. They had four. They had Brennan, and then they had the three girls.
Okay.
And Abigail was a baby at the time.
Yeah, she has the baby that she's like literally holding right up next to her in front. Then she's got another child like laying over her lap portion. And then she's got another child that's like tucked under her arm, like under her wing, And then she's got her legs are crossed, and she's got another child, how you like give them that pony ride on your foot. One of them is sitting on her foot. And she's just like bouncing up and down. She's literally a pile of children with just like this head that's sticking out on top. Yeah. And I remember looking at it, and it was a blessing in just seeing that. Yeah. And I love that verse. That's a verse that I like to share with people who do have, another child or even a grandchild, that these children are referred to as, in the Bible, a quiver, or an arrow in your quiver. I mean, everyone knows if you're a hunter or you're a warrior, the more arrows you got, the better off you are. And our society has really moved away from that. So I'm really thankful that you're not just out there speaking and telling people, but you're actually living the fact. You're investing in the fact that there's value in having all those children. So here's my question for you. It's
taking you kind of a while to get there.
I don't care. I had to tell that story. All
right,
I've been long-winded.
That's fine, but I'm sitting here on pins and needles. What's the question? What's the question? What's the question?
See, now you interrupted me.
All right.
Totally forgot
Here's
the question.
her question. Everybody, Emilee Danielson, go.
The question is, when you do encounter people who, they might say something, or they have a view where it's like, don't have any more kids than what you can take care of, or, there's an option if you don't want to have kids. How do you talk to people in that? Because that's part of our culture right now. We live in a culture where children are a problem. They're kind of in the way. They make your life lesser. How do you respond to people, or how do you witness to people in that realm when it comes to the value of children in their life?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. And so when we were at the between 3, 4, 5 stage, people thought that they could influence us to not have more. And so there was a lot more of that. And once you hit 6, people have they throw in the towel. They're like, we're not going to stop them. Right. But, I think the biggest thing that we can do is to be faithful and to show, because again, it's those things that God says He makes those things plain to see. Like in Romans 1, He says, God created things a certain way, and then when you witness something that God created, whether it's the redwoods in California or the mountains and the Rockies or whatever, and you can just see His revealed creation and know that He exists. I believe the Christian family, with a father who loves the Lord and submits himself to Christ as King, and He's ruling over His household with steadfast love and faithful, as Jesus rules over all. He rules over His household with a beautiful wife who leans into her godly feminine role and loves what God has made her as a mother who takes care of the children and manages the household and the affairs of the household, like the Proverbs 31 wife. And you put this picture on display for everyone. They can say whatever they want, but they know in their heart that that's a glory. And that you can't argue with that.
Right. You can't deny. Right. You can't deny the evidence that's right in front of you.
It's kind of like the Robertsons. They talk about the fact that they believe that their prayer at the end of the show over dinner, over breaking bread together as a family, was some psychologist told Willie, who told Al, who told me, or something like that, that subconsciously attracted everybody to the show because we all want that kind of family. It's almost like a human picture of the great feast in Jerusalem we're all going to be a part of as brothers and sisters and as actual family under Jesus Christ. And a lot of us don't have families like that. We wish we did. And so what you're saying is people look at you guys and they see you guys and they say, they can say whatever they want, but they know in their heart that that's a picture of beauty is what you're saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, even as imperfect as we are and as flawed as we are, they can see the faithfulness and the attempt at obedience and what God does with those imperfect attempts at faithfulness, right? With the glory that he can create through it. And I think another example, I've got a friend, Curtis Bowers, who's made the Agenda movies and stuff. Really great guy. I think he's got like 10 or 11 kids. And he's in prison ministry, and they go in and they sing. They make albums and stuff together, and they go and they'll be in ADSEG where I used to be, and they'll just start singing as a family, and you can start to hear the inmates weeping because they're looking out and they see this family, this Christian family, they're singing, praising Jesus together, and they just know, right? It's undeniable.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the great thing is what a witness as far as the difference one person can make. I mean, looking at your life growing up, there was, dysfunction. Things were broken. Things were they were outside of what God's plan is for the family. But one person in an extremely unlikely situation, God can reach down and touch and turn things so completely around and on their head that within that same person, the next generation is operating completely different within the boundaries of what God has designed and in the blessings that come from living in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
no, it is.
Thought,
I mean,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, had Charles not, been there to minister to me, had, all the different parts and pieces, but Charles obviously played a huge primary role in me coming to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had someone, one of the times I was telling my story, and he stopped me, he goes, "Who did you have praying for you?" Knowing that, these people who weren't necessarily in the picture that are over on the side praying, and the one person I had in my family that was like fervently praying, and they say, the prayer of a righteous man or woman availeth much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my grandma, Mamu, Betty Dawson, was the one who was praying for me fervently for, a decade. And interestingly enough, Chris is the one who delivered this message to me because he was going to see Phil Robertson and go eat at their house. I said, "Tell him Betty Dawson's grandson."
Yeah.
And, Phil was like, "Betty Dawson?" And he said, "That's the most godly woman I've ever known."
Mm-hmm.
And so
I'm the one he told that
Phil
to.
Robertson, yeah.
I can testify. That's what Phil said.
Yeah. The most godly woman Phil Robertson's ever known is who was praying for me for 10 years. That's
awesome.
My grandma.
And that is encouragement for everybody listening, because I can't tell you how many people I know that have family members that don't believe, who have maybe believed at one time and walked away, and how discouraging that is and how hard that is for people who do know the Lord and they want their loved ones to know the love of God. And so just hearing your story, that grandma praying and all these people praying that you don't even know, prayers are effective. Don't give up. Keep praying, because God loves us and he has the perfect ability to do whatever it takes. So thank you so much for that encouragement. Bryan, are there any final thoughts you want to leave with us today?
And you could start with, thanks for coming on the show and making my wife cry. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I make people cry. Sometimes
you're making people cry all the time,
gift,
bro.
Yeah.
So I want to. It's time for final thoughts, but in the final thoughts, I'd really love for you to share a little bit about the media journey. I know we only have about 5 more minutes left, max, because I know your schedule's tight. But the media journey. I mean, your story through media is amazing, and I've gotten to be a big part of it. The last 7 years, and here you are. You find yourself as the CEO of an upstart media company in Alabama, and that's not your only option. I mean, there's a lot of people that want Bryan Dawson to be on their team, but yet this is what God has you doing. Tell us that in your final thoughts with us today, bud.
Sure. Super short version. I got to Alabama and I didn't know the difference between a radio station and a radio network. I had no idea. And the guy that hired me at USA Radio Networks hired you at USA Radio Networks, right? Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And So I was going to church with him, and he said, "Hey, man, I think you would do great. I don't really have the resources to train you. I'm going to give you a quick 101 in my living room about radio syndication. But here's the software that says, who the decision makers are. Here's the products that you offer those decision makers. You'll figure it out." Boom, and I did. It was baptism by fire, sink or swim, and I swam.
Yeah.
And I helped them take their their radio news product that was offered to AM news talk stations. It was 5 minutes. Sounded like it was done on a Casio keyboard in the 80s, because it was. Shorten it up to a 2 minute to offer to FM music stations. And as you guys know, FM music stations have these things called human beings listening. And so it turns out that's valuable when you're selling advertising. So it was this huge thing, growing their news product to a completely different audience, and marketed it. And they never would have thought to do that. So that was a big home run early in my career that garnered the attention of a gentleman by the name of Lee Habib, who was the guy who created Laura Ingram's radio show. And he had moved on from Laura's show. He went on to become the vice president of Salem, where he oversaw Dennis Prager, Bill Bennett, Hugh Hewitt, Michael Medved, Eric Metaxas, Larry Elder, all those guys. And he's still there to this day. But he started another project called American Private Radio and produced a show called Our American Stories. And he said, "I want you to do for Our American Stories what you did to the radio show." So I came in and I said, "Okay, I'm going to do that. But, Lee, I don't want to grow radio shows for the rest of my life. I want to get in the business." And so I said, "You're going to teach me everything you know about the industry if I grow your show." And so he just laughed and shook my hand and said, "Okay, you grow my show, I teach you everything I know." And so for the next 4.5 years, I sat at his feet learning everything I could about the media business. I grew his show. It was on 80 stations when I got there. I took it to 330 stations and did a deal with Premiere and iHeart, which is as big as it gets in the radio world, is that. And when that was done, I actually left there and went and worked for a group in the interim, helping Trump get reelected. That was the goal. And did this massive media-driven get out the vote effort with Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Sean Hannity, all these other guys, raised $6 million, did this massive get out the vote effort.
Isn't there another name you want to mention in there? Because, I mean, I remember somebody besides him.
There was it the Chris fella?
Yeah. I remember riding around Birmingham with you, meeting with millionaires, talking to people.
Yeah.
Oh, what about me?
Yeah. Thanks for
Chris. Chris was the USA. Chris was there with Lee, and then Chris was there at the
No. When you mentioned Bernie Marcus, Ben Shapiro, I mean, the Chris Danielson should be the logical next name.
Yeah. Actually, I think right in between the two.
Oh yeah, that might work too. No, I'm joking, but I was there. Yeah, it was amazing to watch this transition, because part of that led to the meetings with the principals who wanted to launch 1819. Correct?
Well, yeah, and that's it. And so I help with this get out the vote strategy. My pastor started preaching on the importance of localism. Fathers, fix your families. Families being church. Churches make up community. Community, city. City, county. County, state. This is the winning strategy. So I went home and prayed with my wife and said, "How can I use my gifts, talents, abilities, resources, and relationships to make a difference for my people in place in Alabama?" A week later, Caleb Crosby of the Alabama Policy Institute calls me. I hadn't talked to him in like a year, and says, "Hey, he had some questions about some media efforts." And then on the call said, "What we need more than this radio show that we're working on is a statewide, state-focused news and multimedia company for the state of Alabama." Mm-hmm. I'm like, "I'll do it." And so that was it. And that was the impetus. And I wrote out mission, vision, plan, budget, and we got to work, and we created 1819 News to be a statewide, state-focused news and multimedia empire for the state of Alabama. And how's that going, by the way? It's going well.
Good. And the thing I love about 1819 News is it is, like you said, you talk, they cover all those stories that are relevant. And what's relevant for Alabama is really relevant for the rest of the nation as well. But it also doesn't shy away from that spiritual aspect, and they will cover stories that involve Christianity and what God is doing, and they are not afraid to, when they're interviewing someone, to, whatever that quote is about Jesus, we're going to put that full quote in there. And I love that you don't shy away from that. That's part of life, and because it's part of life, it's part of your news. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I mean, we're super proud, and God's hand has been on this thing from the get-go, and if it wasn't, we would have crashed and burned by now. So praying for that to keep going.
Somehow he does. He just sustains us all in his own way, and he makes it all happen. Bryan, thank you so much for spending time with us. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before you go?
Christ is King. Jesus is Lord. That's it. That's
awesome.
That's a political statement also. So do with that what you will.
Do with that with what you will. Yeah, no doubt about it.
I love it.
Bryan Dawson, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to have you back, hopefully as a regular guest, quarterly at a minimum, as long as we can fit into that busy schedule of yours. But we'll keep praying for you. You keep digging, bro. Appreciate it.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
We will be back with more of No Apology with Chris and Emilee. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back in a minute.
Has anybody ever called you an idiot for believing in the Bible? Somebody says, you're just an idiot for believing in the Bible. How would you respond?
People think that Christians are idiots for what they believe.
This God you claim is great isn't so great.
Only an idiot would believe that.
When you wonder about the relevance of the Bible, because it was written in different culture.
Yeah, even though the Bible was written through like a spiritual notation, I guess, it still was written by a man.
It's the second day and I'm asked to pray and I'm walking up towards the podium and I lean in and I say, "Dear George."
I'm here to tell you that my life has been changed by the Word of God.
So what's your opinion on the Bible?
It's 100% true.
Sounds like size involved in this process, you know. Idiots for a Bible, that's what I think of when I think of him.
I'm not going to call atheists idiots because that's just not nice to do. But
Approximately 1,500 times the Bible claims to be the Word of God. Now, what are we going to do with that?
That's kind of deep.
True. I believe in the Bible. I don't care who knows it. I'm an idiot for Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back to No Apology with Emilee. And the "oh yeah" is Chris.
That's right.
That wasn't indigestion, was it?
What do you mean?
That wasn't indigestion.
No,
was
no,
it?
I was saying, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, love the music.
Welcome back to the show. We are once again going to play one of my favorite things, one of my favorite parts of the show. Right on, way off. I still think we should call it Royo. What do you think about that, Chris?
Royo?
Yeah, Royo. Right on, way off.
I don't think so.
Rowo. Even say it.
It doesn't work.
Bad idea.
Ro. What do you
Scrap
think? Mike
it.
Shaw, news director for Fresh Road Media, is in the house. Mike, what do you think? Should we go with Royo?
I'll take acronyms for 500.
Rowo.
Rowo.
Time for Rowo.
Rowo.
The bit is called Right On, Way Off, and Emilee is in control. Emilee, how do you want to see this game go today?
I'm going to do it a little different again till we kind of get our groove. You know, we can test things. And I think this time, Chris, at first you asked the questions, then I started asking questions. And so I think this time each one of us gets to ask a question, okay?
I like it. It's not like we work for Fox News. We can do what we want.
Well, if we worked for Fox News, we wouldn't work there long.
Yeah,
That's
right.
probably the fact.
If we worked for Fox News, we'd probably be a liberal.
Yeah.
Let's
CNN
see
doesn't
here.
return my calls anymore. I don't know what's going on.
What's up with that?
All right, right on, way off, Emilee. What the way this goes is that somebody asks a
explain the
question.
game.
and it's right on, way off, and then you have to take a side.
Yes.
And so whoever asks the question answers last, and then whoever's asking the question tells who's going to be first.
Okay, I think you're kind of confusing us.
No.
Who's on second?
Okay.
I don't know.
Who's on first?
How do you want this to go,
Right.
Queen of the show, Emilee?
Each one of us will have an opportunity to ask a question, and then each of the other three will be able to give their opinion as to whether they think that question or that statement is either right on or way off.
I'm right on with that.
So, yes, there you go.
Okay.
See, that's how it works, Chris.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, let's
So how do you want to start?
Ladies first.
All right, go for it.
Why is there even a question?
There's
I'm
not.
going to kick it off.
But we wanted to hear it from you first.
This is a quote. I'm not going to tell you who it's by. And it's a partial quote, but I'm just going to read it to you. You tell me, the person saying this, are they right on or way off? And the quote is, "To avoid controversy is to avoid Christ." Right on or way off?
Who gets to go first?
I'm going to say, well, since Mike is our guest, we should let our guest go first. Otherwise it's like bellying up to the buffet first. So.
Okay. All right. So
Mike.
You're saying Mike goes first?
Mike goes first. To avoid controversy is to avoid Christ. Do you think that's right on or way off?
I was thinking right off.
No, that doesn't fly.
But it doesn't fly. I can't be Switzerland on this one. And so then and
you can do way off with a caveat or right on with a caveat, but you got to take a side.
I'm gonna go right on, and
okay.
Yeah.
Good job.
There you go.
Good job.
Thank you. I thought that was bubble wrap.
No.
When you're the studio producer, you get to keep the
during
bubble
break,
wrap.
Mike said, he's popping bubble wrap, and he says, right on, way off. The person with bubble wrap is the only one who really enjoys it. And I'm like, that's right on, buddy.
Right
That's not your question, is it? Did
No.
Chris just steal your question?
No, he's not going to use that question. All right, so go ahead. Keep
it's
going.
right on, because wherever Jesus went when he was walking among us here on the earth, Emmanuel, God with us, where there was a revival broke out and a riot broke out every time. When Paul went around preaching, he got stoned, left for dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shipwrecked. Bitten by a snake.
Yeah. And
it's just crazy what Paul went through.
If you're going to stand on the Word of God, if you're going to stand with Christ, the enemy doesn't like that, and he's going to come against you, and you have to stand strong. And so, you have to. That's right on.
All right, very good.
All right.
Chris, to avoid controversy is to avoid Christ. Right on or way off?
I'm right on.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm right on,
You
for
guys
sure.
are united in one accord. I like that.
Absolutely.
Why?
I'm right on.
Correct. You are correct, sir.
That was really slow on the uptake.
I know. I had to look. Where is it?
Keep practicing,
I
though.
will.
Stick with it.
I'll keep trying.
Yes.
I am right on, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because Jesus says himself, he came to divide. And the only people that are with Jesus are the ones that are with him. If you're not with him, you're against him.
Yeah.
The whole lukewarm, well, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to do anything that might cost somebody. I'm going to be Switzerland. I'm going to stay right in the lane. Sometimes that's appropriate. But if you're talking about the authentic Christ who saves, he himself said, I come to divide.
Yeah, we were talking with Pastor Jay Johnson a few weeks ago about that same thing. And he's like, look, if you're going to follow Jesus, you got to do what he says. Like those two things are just not separable. So yeah, I'm right with you guys. It's right on. And the way I knew right away, because it's actually R.C. Sproul that said that.
Okay.
But do you want to hear the whole quote? Because it's a good one.
I'd love to hear the whole quote.
A little bit lengthy. Hopefully I can get through it without, because his words are so high and wise. Hopefully I can get through it without making a buffoon of myself. But this is what he says. Thank you very much.
All right, go for it.
He says Jesus' life, and Mike, you were right on with this. Jesus' life was a storm of controversy. The apostle, like the prophets before them, could hardly go a day without controversy. Paul said that he debated daily in the marketplace. To avoid controversy is to avoid Christ. We can have peace, but it is a servile and carnal peace where truth is slain in the street.
That's fantastic.
Love it.
really
Thank
good.
you,
Very
R.C.
good.
Sproul.
And we should have called RC and had his right on.
Too bad. Yeah, he's with Jesus now.
Well,
you know
he left
that, right?
us his words.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you're going through it and it's getting tiring, just remember that to avoid controversy is to avoid Christ. It's okay. You're on the right track. Keep moving forward.
All right. Who's up next?
How about I trust Michael?
All right, Mike, you got the next right on, way off question.
Let's do it.
Who's going to answer first?
Yeah, well, Emily is.
Okay.
Ladies first.
All right, I'll just sit back here. And,
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
And you'll go second.
That might backfire on me because sometimes I need to hear what somebody else is going to say first.
All right, Mike, what is it?
This will be good. So I was watching YouTube Shorts, which I don't do much, but Matt Walsh came up and he did a short on he's not tipping anymore.
Tipping like waiters and waitresses?
Yeah, he's not tipping anymore. He says way too many people these days expect tips outside of your traditional restaurant stuff. And that is true. And then he was also saying, plus the cost of everything has gone way up.
Okay.
And in Europe, tipping is not a thing.
No, it's in fact, it's almost insulting.
It is
we were in
insulting.
Paris and then we tried to, I forgot where I was and I was going to tip. And this, believe it or not, friendly French man. I know.
It could happen.
If you've never been to Paris, trust me, you need to go at least once. I think it was our third time there, and I just forgot, and I was going to tip. And he's like, Monsieur, do not insult us. We charged you.
Monsieur.
Yeah, did he? Yeah.
Monsieur.
Monsieur,
that's me.
Maybe it's just Paris smells like a sewer. I don't know. There's a big part of Paris that does. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eiffel Tower, the romance. Yeah, there's another part that we've been to that, a lot of tourists don't really go there. Anyway, Mike, no tipping.
Should we tip right on?
Okay, is he talking?
Tipping should go away in America, right on or way
Altogether
off.
off. Altogether. Like,
Tipping
so he
should
doesn't
go away.
He doesn't tip
He's not
at
going to
restaurants anymore.
He's not going to
either.
tip anymore, he said. That's what he said.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right on.
Go ahead,
Who's
Emily.
going first?
You.
Me?
He said you. I got to sit in the
Ladies
background.
first.
That's a hard one. I'm going to say way off. And I hate to do that because I really like the guy, but I'm going to say way off for a couple of reasons. Number one, I like to tip people because when you're in that service industry, you're not getting rich to begin with. Number two, they work very, very hard, and they're oftentimes the types of jobs that people aren't even going to be able to do like their whole life. At some point it's like, I can't do that anymore. So I like to tip people, especially if they have a really good attitude. It's not necessarily based on whether everything's perfect or not. I don't get huffy about it. But I do like to tip because I like to show my appreciation where appreciation really is due. Number two, we've traveled extensively and we've been in places where tipping is not a part of the service. And what happens is you end up with very few people doing all the work. Like it was common when we were in Spain, Chris, you and I would walk into a restaurant. It'd be, 7 o'clock or whatever. The dinner is just starting to come. Customers are coming. And you have like two people that are working the bar, working the kitchen, waiting the tables, and you had to wait a long time before you actually got served.
30 minutes to actually get your order in was common in some of those places.
Right.
And the locals were like, no, this is fine.
They were fine with it, but it was something that they had, that we had to, because we were there for an extended period of time. Like we had to really readjust our mind and just accept it. But I don't think Americans, by and large, are ready to accept that, okay, you're going to walk into a restaurant and you're going to wait 30 minutes before you even get water. And then you'll put your order in, but it's going to be another 30, 45 minutes before you get your food. Americans, I don't think, are prepared for that. So it's not really the waiters and waitresses' fault that things are so expensive. Now, am I going to tip Biden? Absolutely not.
I've got some tips for him.
Yeah. So I'm going to say way off.
All right. Repeat the question again exactly.
Yeah. So the way it landed was that tipping should go away in America, right on the way off.
I'm way off. In America, it's all we got left.
It's America. It's America.
In America, it's all we got left. Look, I come out of the service industry. I know what it's like at the end of the night as a barback or a busboy, even at that level, looking for the tip outs, and so the waitresses, and waiters are tipping out other people,
Yep.
and bartenders are tipping out other people.
They should.
And many times they share in the whole journey,
Right.
and then at the end of the night, this is how they make their livelihood.
Right.
And so for me, I have been a 20% across the board guy, sometimes 25, sometimes 30%, because here's the deal. I call it a value proposition. All right. At the end of a meal, and let's just say it's going to be a $150 tab. Okay, because that's where we are. The $100 tabs are now $150. I don't know how 9% inflation gets us to more than half of the bill.
You need to learn your government math, young man.
It's crazy.
Right?
Yep.
It's progressive math, dear.
But we could go to the same place in the same city and order the same meal that we ordered just 3 years ago. And let's just say it came to $100. I know now it would be $150 to $175. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We're sitting there. Emily orders an entree. I order an entree. They bring it. Everything is good. We decide to have an extra beverage. Or Emily likes to do this. She likes to have coffee with dessert. And then she'll say she doesn't want dessert. I'll order my dessert, and then they'll bring 2 spoons because they know that she didn't order dessert and that she's going to eat half mine. So they just bring an extra spoon.
Yeah.
And so then we have to order an extra dessert. Now that extra dessert is $8 or $9. The
Yep.
coffee is $4 a cup.
Yep.
So we just dropped $20 extra on the bill. And so to drop a 20 on the waitress, that's outrageous. I'll give them $10, or I'll give them $5, or I'll do 12.3% because the service wasn't up to. No, that's not how we roll with other people. If you're a Christian, okay, and you are out dining, this is an opportunity for you to bless somebody.
Yeah.
And do not put a gospel tract down on the receipt thinking that that's a tip. It's not. They want cash. They're earning a living.
They're working really hard. Yeah.
If you are in line to do a $20 tip or a 20% tip that comes to like $10, make it a $20. I want to rephrase that because I want to make my point, and I'm using the same number. You've got a bill in your hand, and 20% would be about a $10 tip. And you want to leave a gospel tract, you make that $10 tip a $20 or $25 or $30 tip, and that gospel tract's value goes through the roof. You make it a $5 tip and put a gospel tract, you're cheap, and your message is cheapened. Tipping, yes, take care of those frontline workers. Now, if their service is bad and the people are horrible, you can find other ways to try to bless on your way out the door without stiffing on the tip.
Yeah.
What bugs me about tipping, because you just heard my whole right on, because I'm about to go way off in a big way here.
Okay.
But I am right on. Where I'm way off is I call a place and I go in to pick up my order, which I'm then going to carry either to the office or to the house. And usually I don't order beverages because I've got it there. And I don't bring cash. Always bring cash when you go to pick up a takeout order. Why? Because your credit card will generate a tip option. And I can't stand writing 0 and putting a slash through it on the tip. But I also can't stand giving 20% to somebody to hand me a box over a counter or a bag over a counter. That just bugs me to no end. So I usually just throw like $2 or $3 down, and that's even beginning to get annoying for me. So,
Yes.
Tipping
Tips by Uncle Chris.
The minute we go to a cashless society, I know that's possibly the mark of the beast, but it's also the end of my days of doing carryout.
But here's the thing for the people that are eating or participating in the service, ordering the service, is that they have input as to what that person gets paid and how well they do. And here's the reality. There are waiters and waitresses in like some of these high-end restaurants. They make a lot of money. And I'm happy for them.
Me
I
too.
think they really should. That's great because if it's a job you love to do, and clearly, I mean, we have just met so many that they love their job. They love the people. They love serving the great food.
And even
They're
if
proud of the
even
food
if they
serve.
didn't love us, they acted in a way that made us feel
That's
like they
right.
loved us.
Yes.
Right.
Good actors.
And so if this is one of your gifts, if service is your gifts, getting back to biblical speaking, if service, hospitality is one of your giftings, why not get paid really, really well that? I'm not with Matt
I tell you
Walsh
what,
on that.
the takeaway for this, my Christian brother and sister that are watching or listening, when in doubt, tip well.
When in doubt, pinky out.
Pinky
and
out
tip well.
And tip well. If it's a question in your heart, err on the side of trying to bless somebody financially.
Yeah, and
That's
Chris,
just the way I
I've
go.
actually even seen you where we've had a waitress or waiter who's just like their head's not in it. They're making mistakes. They really don't care. And you've had a tendency, Chris, to pick up on the fact that, you know what, I bet that person's having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet their bad service has nothing to do with what's going on in this restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to turn that around for that person.
We've done it.
And
we've seen it.
We start talking to them, and then we start giving them a big tip. Our kids have been recipients, working at Chick-fil-A or whatever, and some wealthy person will go through the drive-thru, order a shake, and leave $100 tip with some worker, someone of those teenage workers.
Nice.
And I mean, it's just a celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, let people do that. I love that. I don't want that to go away.
Part of my journey as a 13, 14-year-old was I caddied at a country club. And it was a lot of rich doctors, a lot of rich lawyers, that type of thing. Celebrities would come through and you'd get to caddy. Everybody was judged by 13 through 15-year-olds by how they tipped.
Yep.
Because this was the 70s, okay?
Yep.
And $4.50 is what it cost you to have a caddy for a round. $4.50. And by the way, that was big money back then. And so they would many times tip 50 cents or $1, and sometimes they would just sign the card and put $10. So when you got that $5.50 tip,
Right.
that was a big deal.
That's pretty good.
I mean, kind of like you're going through the parking lot and somebody might scratch that dude's car. You're going to put a stop to it because he tipped you well. You follow?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
right.
You know what I mean? You're
That
gonna
is
you
true.
take care of his
Is
clubs.
that
you take
buying
care.
love?
No,
It's buying service.
that's respect is what you feel.
it is.
And you're buying service.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
if you're just a rotten caddy who's just dragging your butt around the course, and they still have to pay you $4.50. This is 1976, 75.
I can't
All right.
believe you said that.
That's right. I remember
Dragging
back,
your butt across
back in 1976.
like a dog on
Listen.
Satan's carpet.
When I was caddying, we went through things you will
That's
never
right.
understand.
You kids don't get it today.
Anywho, back to I got to golf free on Monday at one of the nicest courses in Minnesota,
That's
and
a
I
great
became
tip.
pretty good, and I won a caddy tournament, and golf could have been my career. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're no Arnold Palmer.
No, it's a rich kid sport, and all rich kid sports I'm attracted to and realize, I can't compete.
Well,
I'll
if you're
just go
hitting
over here
if you're
then.
hitting the driveway, I hear you. I hear that you are a long hitter off the drive. That's right.
I used to
Yeah,
my
that's
back
our favorite.
my back in the front cooker now is getting in the way, but
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, used to be able to hit it a country mile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, what's next?
Do I get to answer my own question?
Oh yeah, you.
Oh yeah.
We are so
You guys did such a great job.
Mike's here. He might have something to say.
Hi everybody.
I hate that when you forget you're doing a show, and all of a sudden,
when we were in Arizona and I used to hang out and and this is how it was in the living room.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's
much.
like,
Hey, you guys, I'm over here.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
But when you get three Danielsons in the room and they get going,
Yeah, exactly.
you can just feel the buzz.
just watch the circus.
Feel the hum.
What you just witnessed is why I always wanted to be an honorary Danielson, and here we are.
Here we are.
I'm living the
Yes.
dream. So
We'll
I'm
adopt you, Mike. I mean,
Thank you.
well,
Appreciate that.
we know Bryan Dawson well. So-
I know, right?
Great. I could be the kid that Bryan Dawson hasn't had yet.
Yeah, that's right. All right, answer your own question. Are you tipping again, Mike, or not?
Yeah, I am tipping again. I used to wait tables.
Yeah.
See?
And this is before BC. I was a waiter. I used to work the Sunday after church shift. And, you hear those stories about where Christians are, have bad attitudes and are bad tippers. I experienced that. Now, it wasn't all of them, but it was pretty much every week we had that to look forward to.
Was it a thing amongst the staff?
No, yeah.
The Christians are coming, they're going to be cheap.
Oh, yeah.
See, I hate that.
For some of them,
We've
I mean,
seen that too.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing. I hope it's not a thing. I'm right on with what you both said too. It's I do tip over 20%, especially for good service, and I try to cheer people up when they're down.
Yeah.
And I've been on the other side of it too, and Chris is right on with his little rant. If you're a Christian, tip well.
Tip well.
Tip well. It reflects well on you.
Yes.
And it also reflects what, it's just, another way to express God's love out there in the
Exactly.
culture. So,
Yeah.
So I'm saying, let's keep tipping. Now, it has wandered into some other areas that I'm not thrilled about, but I'm a pushover, so
Yeah.
I'm a tipper.
Yeah.
It's not going to change.
I'm a tipper.
Yeah.
All right. Be
I'm
a
a
tipper.
tipper.
I'm a tipper. Be a tipper
Everyone's
too,
a
or
tipper.
something.
Wouldn't you like to be a tipper?
Would you
too?
like to be a tipper too? There
I
you
like
go.
that. We
Yeah.
got our own little jingle going.
got it.
All right, Chris, do you have a question
Oh
for
yeah,
us?
I get the food question, right?
Oh, right on.
He said, "Yeah."
Well, we moved from
Well,
restaurants
we'll
into
see.
food. This is a
We'll
natural
see if you're
progression.
right on or way off. We're
I'm
about to
already
find out.
hungry from the last question.
All right. All right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Tater tot casserole seals the cracks of the heart. Right on or way off? Tater tot casserole seals the cracks of the heart. Right on or way off?
Oh, for crying in the sink. That's not even a question.
It is too. It is too.
Does
Deal with it.
Seal the cracks in the heart.
It had a question mark at the end, so that's
Yeah.
a question.
Who's going first?
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I've never had it, so I don't know.
No.
So you'll have to cook it for me, and then I will tell you. I will give you an honest
Yeah,
opinion.
you can't be a total Danielson
Right.
without
No,
eating.
no.
So
Yeah.
that's the
All right.
last and final
It's hamburger,
step.
cream of
That'll
mushroom.
be-
It's hamburger, cream of mushroom
Okay,
soup mixed
okay.
together.
All right,
Okay.
I'm good.
Brown hamburger, cream of
Right.
mushroom soup, and then you add one of the following. You add
Tater
either
tots.
corn,
Okay.
green beans,
Okay.
or peas. One of those three.
Okay.
Or broccoli.
No, never broccoli.
kinda like-
Mushrooms.
You broccoli a tater tot casserole. You are a heretic.
It's
You
kind of
don't,
like broccoli.
don't you bring broccoli into this sacred dish.
Is it like hamburger pie?
It is kind of.
Kind of
yeah.
like hamburger
and
pie?
then you put
Yeah,
you
okay.
put this all on a glass dish.
All right.
And yes, it must be glass to make it authentic.
Because it crisps the bottom up a little bit.
And then
I cook
you
with
lay tater tots over the top, and then you bake it. And the best is when you broil for 2 minutes at the end to get the tots really crispy, and then you scoop it out.
And some people put cheese in it.
So again, you've got heresy
Yeah.
everywhere.
So I'm gonna say this. That is right on, just
All right.
based on that description.
Yeah.
But that does not get you out of making it for me.
No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no. In fact, now that we have an excuse to make it,
Because you got to make like a whole
Yeah.
pan of it.
I-
and then we're eating it
I'm
for like
lucky.
5 days.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
lucky if I get tater tot casserole once a year for the last
What's
5 or 6
wrong
years.
with having your heart sealed for 5 days?
I know.
That sounds wonderful.
If you've never seen the movie Ratatouille, this will make no sense to
I
you.
have
Yeah.
not.
The great thing about it
Then
too
I'm going to
is
skip
it
that reference since Mike doesn't even know.
it reheats really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's comfort food.
All right.
It's
we're
comfort
gonna
food.
we're gonna do a day in the next 30 days
Okay.
where we're gonna have tater tot casserole, and I think we should make it a little video.
All right, yeah, we
let's
could do that.
We'll do a little video.
I have 2 phones on me right now.
Okay,
so we can record
no.
it.
This is what we have to do. Chris is going to make his tater tot hot dish. I will make my tater tot hot dish / casserole,
You know
whatever
who
you
the
call
winner
it.
is in this?
Yeah,
deal.
I call it casserole. Everybody calls
Mike
it.
will vote,
I'm the winner in this deal.
and we shall see.
So he's right on. Are you right on or way off?
I'm right on. It's comfort food.
It's nice,
It's
isn't
good,
it?
and I'm not always in the mood for it. But when I am, there is nothing that can replace it. So yeah, I'm right on. Right on with the tater tot. Did you say casserole or a hot dish?
I said casserole.
Casserole, yeah.
I mean, that's how I grew up. I mean,
I grew up hot
our
dish.
son-in-law
8
grew up-
miles away
yeah,
from
our-
here.
What part of the country is this from?
It's a
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, sure.
Minnesota, sure.
Yeah, sure. Don't you know? You betcha. You've never had the tater tot casserole. I don't know if you've really lived, my friend.
Apparently, I have not. I grew up on the West Coast, so you know.
Yeah.
Out there, it's like, dude, you want to surf and do some tots?
Totally,
Yeah.
man.
Totally.
I mean, the
Totally.
people in Minnesota, they're so like Scandinavian
Yeah.
that even like
true.
you go to the Taco John's or whatever, and they have what they call potato olays, which are really just tater tots.
Yeah, they're little tater tots.
Like even if
Potato
you're having
olays.
even if you're having a Mexican meal, you need some potato in there.
Well, back in the 70s in Oregon, we had a taco man. So, you know, I think some of those northern states back in the day
Yeah.
did not have good Mexican food. That has
True.
changed
Well,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
a degree.
That's true.
Set
to a
Mexican
degree.
food aside,
Yeah.
and the food in the South is the
Yeah.
best on the
Oh,
planet.
yeah.
I mean, on the planet.
Yeah.
I'm talking. We've eaten in some of the finest restaurants all over the globe.
Yeah.
and the food palette, spice, just aliveness in the South, it's better than everywhere else. Now, did you know that Phil and Kay Robertson actually travel with a little case that has Cajun spices in it?
Makes sense.
No, they do.
That's cool.
Her own spices, her
Sure.
own palate that she's going to satisfy wherever she goes. And
So I want to go to Birmingham,
idea.
Alabama, or Atlanta. I'll go to either city. Know both cities very well. And I want to open what I call Northern Bistro. And our positioning statement will be, come for the blandness.
But it's yummy. Sometimes that subtle,
but it's bland.
creamy,
It's
subtle,
bland.
creamy, white, yummy, Scandinavian. I mean,
It's
like just
bland, but it seals the cracks in the heart.
so do Swedish meatballs.
Yeah, so
think about that.
So check this out. I'm here in Iowa now. And,
Yeah.
and I have my license plates now. I'm
Ooh,
very excited.
what a local.
I know, I'm official now.
Yeah.
It's no longer Mike in the Volkswagen with the Texas plates. I've got the Iowa plates. But anyway, I was having.
Trust me, people are still going to know it's you.
Yes, they are. Correct.
That's true. Volkswagen in Iowa tends to stand out. a little.
Gotta be honest, Mike, you're the only Volkswagen bug I've seen.
Are there any other Beatles in town? No.
No, John Paul and Ringo all left town, bro.
So I'm over at an Iowan's house,
Okay.
and having spaghetti, and their son was putting ranch on the noodles, and he's like, "Welcome to the Midwest, dude.
Yeah.
We put ranch on everything." I did
Yeah.
not know that.
Did that offend you as an Italian?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
I didn't. It wasn't my sauce, so
Yeah,
if it had been my sauce, it might have been different.
Your Nana makes some awesome sauce
God.
that you've carried on the tradition.
I do make the family sauce. It's great. Now, at risk of making Emilee cry again, you know, I had my praying mama in Mississippi.
Okay.
And so growing up, she used to make some amazing dishes. And, you know, we had catfish ponds too, so catfish and hush puppies.
Catfish what, Stu?
Catfish and hush puppies.
And what was it called?
It's just called catfish and hush puppies.
Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't enunciate hush puppies.
I did
thought you had
not.
a cool dish there, but okay, whatever.
I did not initiate.
Enunciate.
Right.
no
All
one
right.
said stew. honey.
Yeah, I was like,
But-
is that a dish?
So check this
Catfish
out.
and what?
So Mama
Yeah.
made caramel cake.
Ooh, caramel cake.
And do you know how to make the frosting?
No.
No, but I hear it involves hobbits and tree elves.
It's energy food for those, yes. You caramelize sugar. In other words, you,
you just cook the sugar
You
or
just
till
cook the
it-
sugar till
Yep.
it's liquid and caramelized. It takes a blowtorch to cut off a piece, but it's worth
Oh,
it.
It is
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so we're all right on that tater tot casserole does seal the cracks of the heart. And this show is about the authority of Scripture.
I know, right?
Also leading us to true salvation in
I'm
the authentic Lord Jesus
thinking
Christ. So
we need to have like a food segment.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe even start a food channel here.
I mean,
at
last
Fresh
week
Road Media.
we had Scott Mills with us talking about faith, family stuff, the
Yes.
movies and all that. We've had Don Keith talk about writing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've had Al Robertson talk about, you know, fame and different things like that.
Yeah.
I think that we need to have a food element to this. And I don't know if it can be weekly, but I definitely think we have the skill set here.
I think so.
Yeah.
We
think
can
so.
succeed with food broadcasting.
There is something spiritual. There is something spiritual, and I can't put my finger on it. I can't necessarily explain it, but there's
Breaking
something very
bread
spiritual.
together?
Breaking bread together, eating together. There's a bond that takes place because there was even a portion in the Bible that warns people about there's certain scenarios where you shouldn't eat.
Right.
Sit down and eat with someone. So
And that's where that's where context matters.
context
Because I was talking with
matters.
somebody a couple years ago who used that exact example as to why they think I'm a Bible idiot.
Okay.
By the way, the whole Bible Idiots brand came out of me literally being called an idiot for believing the Bible. I'm like, all right, I'll take it.
Among other things.
I think that the power of the gospel is so strong
It is.
that it can outweigh all this. I don't even have to respond. I'm fine. I'm the
Right.
Bible idiot. Let's just take it on as a moniker and go
take
forward.
that, yeah.
But it's because it says break bread, even, you know, feel free to eat with them, show them respect. And then there's other passages that say, don't even eat with them.
Mm-hmm.
Do not break bread with them. You know, shun them, come out from among them, get rid of them in your life. And so what's the balance? Well, how can the Bible be so contradictory on that? It's context.
Yep.
It's context of those who are lost, who are on their way towards salvation versus those who are lost, who hate you and want to hurt you.
Right.
Yeah. And then
Big
even
difference.
in the Corinthian church, Paul's like, throw that guy out of the church and let Satan melt off some of that flesh. And then when the church wouldn't let him back in, he's like, hey, let him back in.
Right,
Otherwise, you
right.
don't want to give Satan a foothold. So, I mean, it's all context.
It is context. And then the other thing, it's honesty. Honesty is so important.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing something and it makes you look bad, like, for example, Emilee really ruins tater tot casserole. Just admit it.
Never going to happen.
Just admit it.
I'll be the judge of that.
I know. But what I'm saying is when
Yes,
we
you
make
will.
mistakes, we can apologize. And
Yes.
if that's not good enough for folks, that's fine. But at least you realized you're
What's the name of the show?
no apology.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Just checking.
Yeah. No.
Just wanted to know.
The point is that
Yeah.
we are expected to apologize for what we don't feel sorry for.
Exactly.
Right.
We're expected to apologize for the things that are life-giving, that are life-saving, that are going to change people's lives, not just for next year, not just for the next decade, but for eternity.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to apologize for that. We're going to just try to show you out of love what it means to be a Christian.
I just saw the opening. I took it.
Good.
Well, no, but
That's
you know
your
what?
honorary Danielson thing working. I don't know anybody else who does that.
It actually is kind of important because we're entitled no apology. And Chris, you make a really good point that it's like when we've done something wrong, we're commanded to apologize, but we are not commanded to apologize for how someone else feels.
Right.
That's within their realm of control. And as long as we've done nothing wrong, then we don't need to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked earlier about how, to avoid controversy is to avoid Christ.
Yep.
And so know what you're apologizing for. Be ready to apologize when
If you
you're
need
sinful.
to. Yeah.
But when it comes to the gospel of Jesus Christ, there no apology.
You want to be an honorary Shaw?
No.
How?
No desire. I'm a Danielson. I love being a Danielson.
This might talk you into it.
Okay.
My dad says, never apologize. It's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
He also said, Shaw, I swear if you had a brain, you'd take it out and play with it.
That could be a bit on the show.
And he didn't apologize.
Right. And never put it away. And then it would lay out in the driveway and he'd run over it with the car.
Wow.
Well, Emilee, you got to take us out.
All right.
This
sounds
is
good.
this is the end of the show. Thank you for hanging out with our nonsense on this week. We are just getting rolling. FreshRoadMedia.com. FreshRoadMedia.com is the website. It's listener-supported broadcast outreach. It's not just this podcast. It's going to be so much more, and we'd love for you to learn more about it. And not only that, when you go to FreshRoadMedia.com, look at the Be On The Show link.
Yeah.
There's a link there. You can click that and record a voice message, which we can then play on the show as you take on our questions of the week and the other things that we're going to start generating on that website, FreshRoadMedia.com. Emilee, bring us home.
Yeah, add your 2 cents. We'd love to hear from you. Also, one other thing on the website, you can read my latest blog. There's several of them up there. Would love to have you join us however you deem appropriate. Go to FreshRoadMedia.com. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I hope you were encouraged, and I hope that you will earnestly seek the Lord Jesus Christ. On behalf of Chris and Mike and I, thanks for listening.